Okay, welcome to the 10th annual Wild Wisconsin Winter Web Conference. I'm Leah Langby from the IFLIS Library System, and I'm joined by my colleague Reb Kilby, also from the IFLIS Library System today as a backup moderator. We're all just really glad that you're here with us today. Our presenter for this session is Jennifer Burke with IntelliCraft Research. And Jennifer will be discussing PR outside of, it's more than just a press release. So whenever you're ready, Jennifer, please go ahead.
Thank you so much, Leah. Appreciate it. And thank you to all of my colleagues who have me here with Wild Wisconsin. I'm thrilled to be here. And this presentation has come from both a genesis of my background and my years ago as an advertising and marketing executive and working with PR teams, and also with many library marketing colleagues and those who I consider to be much more of PR experts. And I've certainly reached out to them and mined them for their information. But it also became because I had a pet peeve. I had a pet peeve years ago when I started in library marketing consulting, that the terms PR and marketing would get confused and mixed up and interchanged. And then that led to our practices and our expectations getting out of whack. And we're going to fix a little bit of that today and a little bit of PR 101 and talking about relationships and relationship building, where PR fits within all of marketing, and some of the pieces that all of your libraries need to have in place so that we do get to beyond just the press release. So because I'm a good library trainer, we've got our key objectives and learning objectives here about knowing the difference between PR and marketing and the pieces and how they go together, the different elements of a PR or a media kit that your library needs to have. And all of that goes to setting clear expectations for your public relations efforts, and to be thinking as I talk with your library and all of some of those wonderful comments that you've been sharing in the chat already, which can in fact be absolutely part of your public relations. And what's one SMART goal that your library can have, thinking in the next 90 days and also, for the year. So you've seen some of my biography. We don't need to go into this slide. The one thing to highlight that I love making sure that I mention,
Jennifer,
we're not sharing screen.
That's right. Not yet.
Because I forgot you took that back. Sorry, Lee. Thank you. Mm-hmm. And now I'm going to go get back the chat window. So let's go backward. Just one. Well, it's just the title slide and the objectives. There we go. The objectives and the learning outcomes. My brief background. The one thing to highlight there that I love always making a plug for the Library Marketing and Communications Conference, the LMCC. We're getting ready to head into our 8th season. I know some of you have attended in the past, and definitely encouraging those of you to check it out. For those of you who are specifically doing any type of marketing and communications in your library, whether you're a solo, whether you're wearing that alongside of other library tasks and hats that you have on, small libraries, big libraries, public and otherwise, LMCC serves all of you. And we have plans, I swear we have plans, and a hotel contract to be in Indianapolis in November of 2022. So I share this screen in literally every library webinar, every conference presentation, because it's just that important. And it's also a chance for me to get some doggos and catos in the, in the talk. I want you all to think about why. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you marketing? Why are you doing public relations? Why did you create that flyer? Why are you posting on social media? And to always ask, why should your community care? Whether your community is students, whether your community includes faculty, the community that is around you as a public library. And this is really, really important to think about in terms of public relations. Keep this question in mind today and always, is with the message that I'm sharing, with the relationship I'm building, with whatever I'm doing, why is my patron, why are they going to care about this particular message? So I mentioned my little pet marketing pet peeve that, it's been used interchangeably within our field. We even have major awards that are named for being, about being PR when they're really about being marketing campaigns. And okay, pet peeve, it bugs me. I get on a soapbox, but why? Why does it even matter? Well, I wrote, I've written a couple of things about it, but the answer is that words matter. We know that. We're librarians. But it also matters in terms of when we are talking outside of our library, when we are talking within the community, when we are talking with our partners. And because we have a hard time measuring what matters and doing more of it, if we're measuring perhaps the wrong things, if our expectations, like I said, get out of whack, because we can't know the effectiveness of our efforts in terms of outreach, in terms of advocacy, of email, of social media, of flyers, of newsletters. We don't know which of those things are being effective if we don't really understand where they were coming from. Were they part of a coordinated public relationship campaign? Are they part of direct in terms of marketing and promotions? We also set ourselves up for a potentially a lack of success if we expect the wrong outcomes. And we start expecting certain things to happen because of public relations, when really that was something that was more about promotion and marketing, or we weren't in the right place at the right time with the right message. We might give up on something too soon, or we might pursue other activities beyond what's really reasonable to ask of our staff and of ourselves. So that's why it's become my pet peeve to make sure we're all on the same page here. So this is the first question, then I'll ask them a few during as we go, and for you to ask me questions as we go. And I know that Leah and Reb are going to watch questions for us as well. But the question, honestly, for you all is, what do you have going on right now or in the next 90 days at your library? Why would the media pay attention? And now this gets back into why will the community care? And this is for PR and public relations, is why will the media care? Because you may have an idea of why you think they should pay attention, and put that in the chat by all means. But definitely let me know why you hope they pay attention. And we can also talk as we keep going about whether it's realistic that the media will pay attention to what's going on. Are there certain events? Are there fundraisers? Are there activities? Are there events, programs? What do you have coming up that you want the media to pay attention to, and why should they care? And then we could talk a little bit about, whether it's realistic based on their audience. Somebody's got a winter reading program. Awesome. Okay. So keep throwing those in the chat as I keep talking for a second. So marketing. The good news is, as I've spent years with the Library Marketing Communications Conference and with other librarians and colleagues, is that it's no longer quite the dirty word that so many librarians maybe thought it was 10 or 15 years ago. And it's not always marketing meaning, car sales, telemarketing, Black Friday. Yes, that's one part potentially of the big cycle, but it's also things like design and signage and your wayfinding, and it's public relations. It's media, it's social media, it's your library's logo, your library's branding, it's the displays in your library. It's every one of those customer service and patron service touch points that you have. It's even things like, do you do outreach? Where do you go in the community? Do you have pop-up tables? Do you have a bookmobile? Do you have book bikes? All of that. When Coke thinks about marketing, the bottle is part of it. The packaging is part of it. The color is part of it. One of those pictures is library swag. Yes, library swag is absolutely part of it. And so is planning, research, and strategy. I'm loving coming in things. We've got some Black History Month. Programs geared toward a 6-week series of lunch and learns for seniors. Awesome. Keep coming in. And then as we go through this, start thinking about, how am I going to work with and build relationships with media in my community so they care as much about your upcoming events as you do. So the other thing that we have to think about in terms of public relations is people to think the PR when something bad happens. There's a crisis, there's a disaster, and that's absolutely part of it. And I've got some tips in here for you, but that's there's two sides of public relations. There's the relationship building and the work that we need to do that's ongoing. And then there's the part where we have to plan for a crisis, because that's probably, if we've learned anything else after the last 2.5 years, stuff happens. And sometimes stuff keeps happening. And we can better get on top of that if we just know that stuff happens and we have teams and systems in place to help deal with it. We were talking a little bit before we got started, and the wonderful question that Lee posed about what has something been said about your library recently that was a good comment. So here's a nudge for you. Are you tracking those things? Do you know what's being said about your library right now? Do you have alerts? And this is a question, put it in the chat. Do you have Google Alerts? Do you have TalkWalker alerts set up? Are you saving mentions or searches in social media? Curious about that. So again, marketing, PR, part of the overall cycle, doing slightly different things, pulling for you in different directions. Marketing, we're talking about what it is that our customers, our patrons want and need, and are we offering up the programming, the services, the electronic resources, the books, things that satisfy those demands. I want us to really think about PR in terms of the relations part. People tend to think of PR as being press releases. No, we're talking about relationships, mutually beneficial relationships. And I think there were some comments in the chat about already having relationships with some local media. It's media, it's local organizations, it's potential local partners, it's other civic organizations, it's other key stakeholders in your community. And having those mutually beneficial relationships is absolutely one of the keys to public relations. My friend Cordelia Anderson, who was formerly at Charlotte Mecklenburg, an award-winning library in North Carolina, used the analogy of promotion, and so much of what we think about as marketing is the promotion piece, that it's the megaphone, it's the blasting, that's the e-newsletters, that's the emails, it's Twitter, it's social media, it's videos. Engagement and relationship building is so much of what is behind successful library nonprofit public relations. You're talking with people, you're doing listening, you're getting feedback, you're giving them messages, you're helping them to share your message. But it's it's a back and forth dialogue. So don't forget, you're also going to get all of the handouts and everything else like that. So you don't have to try and read what's on this slide. I've completely gone past the best rule of slide design. There's too many words. The main thing to know is that down here, promotion and advertising and PR are just one small piece of all of the rest potentially in terms of marketing. And people think, oh, well, libraries don't have pricing. But we potentially do. We have it in terms of the wonderful comment that was dropped in about our patrons who were like, oh, now I understand where my taxes are going, making it clear to them all of the value they get. Those receipts that some of our checkout systems put out that so look how much you save by getting all of these books and DVDs this month. So we can fit those things in within the marketing cycle. So we're going back to, again, why should the media care? Not only why should your community care about your message, but why is the media going to care? And we have earned media and paid media. So really quickly, earned media is where a journalist, a potential an industry expert, an influencer in your local community talks about you and shares your message. They love you, they've talked about you, they're already a user, they're key stakeholders who you've given word of mouth messages to help share. They're like, yep, love it. And then there's stuff that might be paid advertising. We have articles in newspapers, magazines, journals, blog posts, TV and radio segments. You've appeared on a podcast, tweets and social media that aren't from you and that aren't sponsored. might be considered in some respects paid media. You didn't pay to get it, but it's considered a little bit differently. We also think about, and some libraries do, still think, well, everybody should love us. We're an essential part of the community. Well, but we all know that not everybody does. PR is also considered in why we need it in addition to marketing. A lot of my nonprofit pals, a lot of my library pals love talking about public relations and PR because it's considered to be easier, less pokey, and lower cost than other marketing efforts. You need the both of them together. PR is also, and this is where I get into the soapbox moment, PR is long-term, ongoing relationship building. It's reputation management. It's planning for things before the crisis hits you, and how do you deal with a crisis when it happens, whether that's a short crisis or now a 2.5-year pandemic crisis. Marketing tends to be with it throughout the organization. It's ongoing as well, but it also happens in shorter bursts, in campaigns. And could you have a PR campaign? Absolutely. But when we talk about things like winter reading and summer reading, there's a public relations aspect to that, but that campaigness, that dedicated, time-sensitive sort of thing that's happening is more marketing. And if we have a long-term relationship with the media, then maybe they're more likely to see that as something that's newsworthy, and then we get the paid and earned media to cover that event. So the other thing to stress is that public relations needs to be thought of as part of your entire marketing plan, not something that's separate, the same way that, and other people are going to talk about this, like my pal Angela Hirsch, but social media needs to be part of your marketing plan and not something separate either. So that means there needs to be some research and there need to be SMART goals, just like the rest of the marketing plan. You need to know who your audience is, and the answer is not everyone. And that's true for when you're building out public relations and relationships. Which media? It isn't everybody. It isn't everybody at a TV station or a local newspaper. Who's on that beat? Who are you talking to? Who's going to be the best person to potentially be a good connection and long-term relationship, for the library? Do you have overall public relations goals for your library, as well as the program specific ones for Black History Month, for summer reading, for winter reading? Plus, are you trying to increase circulation? Are you trying to do a public relations long-term campaign about the fact that you've been closed or now are reopened, or the building is moving, or you're creating a new building? There's both long-term and short-term goals and campaigns. So we need to think about the goal for public relations and then the strategy and the tactics, which means that you might need to sit down as part of a team within your library and think about SWOT. This is the strategic part, not necessarily the fun part of marketing. But especially key in terms of public relations and thinking about weaknesses is maybe one of your library's weaknesses is that you don't have anybody identified on staff right now who can handle crisis communications. Who's your one point person? Who would be the person that you are going to have speaking with the media? And it may or may not make sense to have that be a supervisor or a director. Who's the person who has the best relationship with the media? Who's very calm under pressure? Because it's about planning for if and not when you have a crisis. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of, well, honestly, when. So part of the SWOT for public relations is also knowing who your allies are, who in the community is immediately going to jump in if something happens and your social media pages start getting trolled because of something. Who's going to help come and champion you and echo your good messages? And for things like that, it really does involve all of your staff. So this is another one where we start thinking about creative alliances. So instead of some of the usual summer, or in this case, I love all of you who are doing winter reading programs and announcements, are there ways to partner with those in the community, other community partners, to get a little more intention. So I know some libraries who worked with the mayor or a local author or possibly a local celebrity. And they're going to do something wild and crazy if patrons read some high but achievable number of books during the winter or the summer program. And, there have been ones who shave their head. There have been dunk takes. There have been painting things, kiss a llama. So you can then use that also to keep media and influencers posted as progress goes. Like, oh, we're this close to having the mayor kiss a llama. Who else is going in your community that is talking about it that you maybe hadn't thought about in terms of, like I said, podcasts, bloggers, social media influencers? Are there other places that you can go within the community to continue to build up those long-term relationships? So, SMART goals, being specific and measurable, achievable, reasonable, and time bound, is I'd love to have you think about, and certainly by the end of when all of this is done, is what's a reasonable, smart public relations goal for your library over the next 90 days. Ooh, actually you got slimed. I love it. You got slimed for library card sign up month. That's a wonderful, probably very media worthy sort of event. You might not be able to repeat it all the time, but it might also be something that turns into an annual event, which then leads you to have a continued reason to be in touch with certain key media and key stakeholders. So this is the part about how public relations needs its plan too, but the relationships, planning your relationships. That's about building and nurturing them before you need them in terms of a crisis, and building a relationship before you need to contact somebody to say, hey, can you cover winter reading? Can you cover summer reading? They were like, who are you? And why? So it's also some of the best advice I've gotten from my friends who have, their literal feet on the ground doing this, is they've built teams of outside support. So those who are potentially within universities are like, are you in touch with the PR professionals for the university? Are you in touch with the PR professionals for your college's sports teams? They have tons of experience at this, and they have tons of connections. Get together, have coffee chats, have virtual coffee chats, talk about this. Talk with other civic organizations and nonprofits in your community to get together with their PR experts, so that you can help support each other and to build that support staff and to build those allies ahead of time. I think I've seen some folks who were dyeing their hair as part of public relations and earning badges. That's awesome. So if you plan and think about public relations before events, before long-term campaigns, before long-term games, goals, and changes within your library, that also helps reduce that reactivity that we get when we do find ourselves potentially either in a crisis mode or a, oh my goodness, I need more butts and seats ahead of this particular event, or oh my goodness, we are coming up on the ballot. What's going to happen? So let's see, come on, let's get past the animation for that slide. Thank you very much. Nitty gritty. All right, let's get into the specifics of how do we make all these wonderful good things happen. So press materials, having a press and a media kit ready at your fingertips, digitally. A copy of your core media kit and materials should be on your website, because we've trained to some degree journalists to search. They're going to search for this. They're going to look at our websites for this information, and they are just as lazy as everybody else. They want everything in one piece, so they don't have to go searching things down, and they don't even necessarily have to contact us in order to find our logos and our bios and fact sheets and everything. Keep it up to date. So having that fact sheet, use the power of Canva, use other tools, infographics, have that PDF, that fact sheet of, hey, did you know this about the library? Myths versus facts. This is a wonderful opportunity for infographics, not just dry stats and numbers, make it appeal to them. You're going to need this. You're going to have to probably keep this, up to date. Leadership and or your spokesperson bios. Again, key to have this way before you ever wind up in a potential crisis and or potential event. If you have particular people leading events for summer reading, for winter reading, for Black History Month, make sure you have the bios available and easy to download off of your website. Headshots. The less work any journalist has to do beforehand to get their background and their basics done, the more likely they are to work with you. So if you've got anything that has to be done internally to get that material done, do it now before you ever need it. Also, if you know that there's a certain internal approval process and timing for things, make that really clear. Make that even be in your fact sheet. They're like, hey, here's who you're going to have to go through. And it generally takes us 48 hours, 72 hours, 1 week, before we can get back to you about blank. This is another tip from longtime PR pros, is to keep your materials, keep this fact sheet tight, copy-wise. We're talking about, a page of key facts, maybe a key page of social media stats or facts. You may need to have several fact sheets so that each of them can be kept super short and super pointed, potentially on a particular topic. You got your winter reading fact sheet, you got a summer reading fact sheet, you have a general collections fact sheet, you have a did you know we have this many e-resources in the library fact sheet, so that you can get the right thing to the right people very easily and they're not surfing. If you are very big in social media, whose library isn't in the last 2 years with everything being virtual and virtual programming, is thinking about, okay, why are we there? What are we looking to achieve? How can we be even more responsive in terms of social media and public relations, and making it easy for local media who's also on social media to get the facts they need to potentially share what you're putting out. So social media posts can absolutely help support your public relations goals as well as event promotion goals. Do you have posts that are built in like that? That also might mean that you have partnership posts. You have a takeover day from another local civic organization, another student organization. We'll get a little more into press releases and pitches, but the key thing to know here is, again, it's about a relationship. It's about knowing who to send it to, that you are not just blasting them out, that the subjects need to be tailored, the pitch needs to be tailored to a specific reporter or an influencer, their interests, their coverage area. So I'd say you can use templates for press releases, but sparingly. Make sure as part of your process, you've built in the time that you need to customize and personalize your approach. It's a two-way street in terms of public relations. You are not broadcasting and blasting things out. Remember, it's a conversation. It's about a relationship, the relations part of PR. So awesome. More things that are in the media kit. Photos have wonderful, high quality. They can be taken by you. They can be taken by your staff. We all are walking around with devices that take great quality photos. Having ones that are easily available for media to share and to use, use as B-roll, use it into their clips, make it easy for them. Make sure that when your logos are online, you also have any guidelines for how they should be used. Make sure it's clear that they can't just turn your logo into white or black or gray. Give them copies of those. Make sure that they're available in different file formats, transparent backgrounds in a PNG, JPEG. If you need help, it's absolutely worth it to pay a graphic designer once to make sure all of this is set up properly for you in different size formats, and that it's all ready to go, ready to use, bing, bang, boom. Here's another thing. This is a personal pet peeve. Please don't call your logo files logo. I can't tell you how many organizations I've worked with and how many large brands, major software brands who you go to their media kit and you get their logo and the file is literally called logo. or logo for C and a year. Make sure your library's name or acronym is in there along with the logo and what size, and is it 4-color, is it white? Just please do this, folks. You're going to have any quotes and testimonials. You all shared some phenomenal quotes in the chat earlier. Making sure you have those and you're putting them in your fact sheets. Those are what we know as pull quotes. Oh my goodness, that's gold. Yep, Julie's going to go off to, no, Julie, come back. Go fix all your logo files later. But yes, there's a hidden task that's going to have to be done later. Previous press releases, if you have them, put samples of them, especially if they're ones that were picked up and used and were successful, to show, key elements and how anything that helps you in terms of relationship building and publicity, put it all in one place in your website, Media Kit. Called Media Kit. Canva has templates to create your Media Kit. If you have a calendar about where to find you, make everybody's job easier, including yours. But I will say I'm going to show some examples, but absolutely, Canva and Adobe Spark both have Press Kit and Media Kit templates. So relationships are everything. Relationships. Do you know who's on the beat in your community? Is there a local community paper? Is there a slightly larger regional or city paper, print, TV, radio, blogs, social media influencers? Who's the person at the newspaper? Who's the person at the local TV station who is most likely to be covering local community events? You don't accidentally want to send something to the person who's in charge of sports. You don't want to send something to the person who's in charge of business news. They're likely to ignore it. And yes, influencers here, influencers are everybody. Other civic organization leaders, donors, people in your friends group, teachers, students, parents, deans, provosts, the wide circle. If they know where your Media Kit is and they have your fact sheet too, and it's a beautiful little infographic on one sheet, they're in a better place to be someone who spreads your message for you. Whoever your most vocal supporters and super users are, help them to help you as part of your toolkit. The PR experts that I've talked to most often, they keep spreadsheets with contact information, including the preferred way to be contacted for all key local media. So if you know there's a local media contact and he only wants email, then don't call them. And if there's somebody else who's big on okay with being contacted on social media, make sure you know that, because you want to be following them on Twitter. You want to be following them on Facebook. I'm not saying you're necessarily going to DM them, but do know whether there's somebody who doesn't ever want a phone call versus they want everything, emailed to them, or by all means call them because they're never checking their email. Make sure that you have a follow-up plan for when you do send press releases, so that you are knowing when you're going to follow up, who have you contacted, when, 3 days out, 5 days out, which is another reason why press releases have to go out way in advance of when you think they do, because of deadlines, because you need to have enough follow-up time, because chances are they didn't see your email the first time. Spray and pray doesn't work terribly well. So besides Julie, who's off changing her logo file names conventions right now, I'd love to know, show of virtual hands, throw it in the chat, yes, no, who has or know they have a Media Kit for your library right now, and I could go find it online. Uh-oh. Well, I'm really glad you all are here in the right place then. Nope, nothing that comprehensive. Start somewhere. Start with logos, start with bios, start with a fact sheet, then add in these pieces as you have them. Okay? Well then, great. I hope this is going to be really helpful for you today. I get asked a lot, when do we send a press release? And the answer is not nearly as often as libraries tend to send press releases. You need to ask yourself truly, is it timely? Is it relevant? And is it newsworthy? More importantly, you need to put on your media person's hat to ask if it's newsworthy, because there's things that we think are newsworthy that they don't agree with us on that. So here's the what's in it for me that we have to ask, is they're asking that to say what's in it for my audience. Why will my reader, why will my follower, why will the person viewing this segment tonight care? They need to know that. That's the hook we're going to get to hopefully here in a second. So if you truly have a breaking news, if there's crisis, yes, if there's a major event, and this is where we get into some tough love moments, because we tend to think that summer reading, winter reading, and other months that we celebrate are major events, and they are major for us, and they are major for a lot of our users, and they are not necessarily major for some of our communities. We have to find a reason for them to think it's major. If you've got an award, definitely a good time. If you've hired new staff, yes. And then of course, crisis communications. If you've done research, if you have a highlights from a survey, a user study, you can even borrow studies from the entire library field. Like the guys that I know over at every library have been sharing on social media about, and it may be old research, but talking about how there are more libraries in the United States than there are McDonald's. Everybody's like, oh, I didn't know that. That's like a public relations nugget. That's one of those, somebody else did the research on that. You didn't have to count how many libraries there are, but you could decide you're going to count how many libraries there are in the state of Wisconsin versus cheese shops. Sorry, didn't mean to go there, cheese jokes. Pick something that could potentially be a hook where people are like, oh, I didn't know that. So this is, again, tips from, I went out and talked to some of my library PR buddies and asked them for their best tips on developing media relations. So Emily Brown at Mid-Continent Public Library down in the Kansas City area, Missouri, big branch system covering a very diverse range of audiences and branches, echoing the thoughts in terms of doing the research and knowing who covers what. Following them on social media. What are the common points? Look at what else they've covered. Follow the stories they've done over the last, say, 3 months. Pull the clips, take a look at what they've done online, what they've done if they're TV, what they've done if it's radio, and figure out, oh, got it. If this one has a dog in it, then we know John's going to cover it. Oh, they're likely to cover anything that has to do with kids. Okay. Oh, everything's got a health angle right now. Good. Look for their patterns. They'll have them. When you understand what they tend to cover and how they tend to cover it and approach their stories, you can make that better, more personalized pitch to get them to cover a library event. So absolutely, I love that, Meredith's pointing out that she's a tiny library with a tiny staff. So on the one hand, your approval process might be a lot shorter. On the other hand, yes, you have limited time to do this. So if you're tiny in your tiny town, it might also mean that you already know your media contacts, you know where they are. It's probably a lot easier for you to go and get them at the local diner and have a cup of coffee. Or, well, it used to be. Go outside when it's not -6 and have the cup of coffee. Like I said, where it's appropriate, and if they're on social media, then have the library follow the local social media people. You see what they're doing as well online. I love that Emily said that it's really important to share victories. And what she meant there was that she loves always being able to share the coverage that they get using the library's various channels and then tag the media back. So if they run a story, if they share a social post, if they publish something, give them the credit, give them the love, and you're like, thank you so much for sharing this. Thank you so much for doing this. Recognize, and then you're sharing their story back out into your audience. Don't assume that your library patrons and users saw the thing that happened on News Channel 4. Because let's face it, the media is invested in their engagement and what they get clicks on as well. So if one of their stories about puppies coming to the summer reading program, or therapy dogs helping kids with stuttering or overcoming reading and literacy issues was a wild hit, well, then they're going to maybe pick it up and do another story similar to it. Response: to the best of your ability and where you are limited in terms of staff and hours, is respond. Respond quickly, respond thoroughly. This is where I would be replying and apologizing to Jamie from Wild Wisconsin for how difficult it is sometimes to get me to respond to emails in a timely manner. Don't be me. Even if that is, hey, thank you so much, really interested, let me get back to you with the fact sheet on that. Responded. Network. Take any chance you have, even if that these days that's virtually, to meet and chat with any local media members. That might mean, I know Emily told me stories of going to Chamber of Commerce events, to going to other nonprofit events, to going to other galas, fundraisers, any chance that she had to grab a few minutes to talk with local media. Reb, absolutely. Sending thank yous. Yes. Great one. Absolutely. Anything that makes you both memorable, and if that's the dyeing your hair for a reading program sort of thing, but also being memorable because you work fast, because you had the photos, because you were quick to respond to them, is great. It helps you to build that ongoing relationship. We were talking again about the commonalities and the patterns between local media. Other things besides being always following the kids and the pets is, does a particular recorder always use a lot of testimonials? Do they use a lot of quotes? That means it's going to be important for you to have a press release or have a pitch to them that includes really good quotes, something that has a good testimonial, a good did you know fact. If they are all about warm and fuzzy things, then that's a great opportunity for you because the library has lots of warm and fuzzy stories. I think Emily was telling me when she followed folks on social media, she kept a separate work Twitter account to follow local media, to make connections and to reach out. That she did actually, yes, reach out, and she makes connections to local media, via Twitter. All of this is again about what's in it for me, what's in it for your community, but the media is thinking what's in it for them, and how can we make their lives easier so that they can get their stories out fast and on deadline. So these are some of the examples Emily has shared with me with work that Mid-Continent had done. They had a segment where they were able to go in studio, this is a couple of years ago, to one of the Fox channels in Kansas City. And so they were demonstrating certain electronic resources that the library had. In another second, I know that they have a big genealogy library. They were able to show and do examples of family history research during, say, like Family History and Genealogy Month. They have a museum passes program. And so they were showing the museum passes and talking about that program during National Library Week. That was a natural connection for them to be able to do that. Emily and her staff make themselves available to go to the local radio stations to talk about programming. They make it easy. In that case, it'd be like these days getting on Zoom, and absolutely whenever possible, making it available to do local on-location shoots. Great question coming about local competing with a municipality. Okay, let me think about that one, Courtney, and we'll make sure we come to that one. Other questions. So this one was when I reached out to pal Nicole Fowles in Ohio. Again, long-term relationship building for public relations. So start now, make that networking, make those sorts of things happen before you necessarily need them for a program that's happening in the winter, in the summer. Start now. I love it that Nicole was pretty key about both. If it's easy, you go to them, it's informal, you keep it casual, you have lunch, but at possible, getting them to a library so they can actually see and understand and meet teams if you have them, to meet key members of your administration. Maybe it's just you, so that they can understand if you have something unique within your library, where people are, again, how we've gotten to this point and they're still just figuring out we have ebooks, or, oh, hey, did you know we have the 3D printer, or we have a maker space, or we also have this community group. Any little things like that can show them, they're like, ooh, to pay attention. And that's when you can also use packets. Nicole has she has a digital kit. The media kit is on their website. And when she meets with certain key local contacts, she does take them a folder that has the library's annual report, their one sheet, their latest newsletter. She gives them a library card. Sometimes it's a blank card, but she often calls ahead of time to find out whether they already have a library card. If not, she gives them their new library card right there at the time. So you can send an email, you can talk to a newspaper editor, a TV station producer, a local blogger, suggesting times to meet up. You're going to keep it short because they're busy and you're busy. But it's great if you can do that on location. Maybe you can even tie it back into the fact that, hey, we're all doing things back physically in the library. This would be a great time to show you around. You can offer that sort of walkthrough. The media packet that Nicole gives out is what they call like a take and go sort of thing. It's quick touch, it's light. You mention what's in there, you move on. You don't walk them all the way through it. They can refer to it if you need it to it. And obviously it has your website and the link to your media kit online where they can follow up and always get that information again. So talking points. These are some of the talking points that Nicole uses when she is working to build relationships with local media members to understand them. I thought one of the really key ones is knowing on a rolling basis, when are their deadlines? Like if you know that everybody's TV news station has a deadline of 2 p.m. for the 5 o'clock news, great, you understand that. You know when you can try and get somebody a story. You know when the deadline is if they publish something weekly, if they're publishing something daily, to be able to answer the 5 whys: who, what, when, where, and obviously why. And why should we care? Don't assume that local media knows where all of your branches are. Don't assume that they even know what that you're open certain hours or that you're not open right now. Don't assume that they understand and know anything right now. Make it easy for them. Always have something to show off that's new or different. And wherever possible, Nicole stresses that as much as possible, we show them things and we don't just tell them. She actually has worked with her local media in Ohio on weekly columns. Certain local papers, certain local magazines need content. You can easily provide that to them. We know content, we have content, we can do that. You could do weekly gardening tips, weekly book tips, talking about new books, parenting. There's all kinds of tips we can pull from all the resources that we have. Do they need photographs? Maybe they need local things. They don't have enough photographers. You can have opportunities for photo opportunities that are coming up. There's often the opportunity to work in, if you have archival material that would help them in local interest stories coming up. And obviously, putting things on your calendar to follow up. This is long-term nurturing and relationship development, making sure that you're touching in with key local media contacts quarterly, monthly, possibly more if you're in larger and busier markets. You don't want them to forget about you. You want to make sure that if somebody changes on the beat, you know about that ahead of time. And then Nicole has dealt with a lot of crisis communications of various aspects. She's from another award-winning of library, and they had some where they were in the middle of celebrating something really good they did, and then they got into the crisis communications mode. And for them, it was about, as much as possible, controlling messages from the start, about being honest, about being upfront. Nicole was one of the ones who taught me that you need to have your team in place before you think you're ever going to need them, and to have outside team as well when you do the sounding board, to go and talk to other local public relations folks and get their support, get their suggestions, and as much as possible, roll with it and apply and learn and get better before the next one comes up. So let me think of for a second. I want to think about Courtney's question, before we move on, is what do you do when you have to compete with a municipality to reach the same audience for programs? So I'm talking about, Courtney, are you talking about like, when you've got to deal with also the Parks and Rec and you've got other local civic organizations, or the city government or the state government is also putting on things? And a question there is, I guess, are there any opportunities to partner? And sometimes everybody gets territorial and they're like, no. And maybe there's an olive branch where you're like, hey, maybe there's this one thing we can both, communicate about. It's also, that's the matter where, you're going to the local press and you're following them to figure out what they're most interested in. And that may mean that you're not going to get every story that you want covered. Pick your battles, pick your priorities, and what's the one thing that you're doing, that the library is doing, that Parks and Rec or other aspects of the municipality aren't doing. That you can't say that you're covering the same turf because you're approaching them very differently. And I think that's one of the harder lessons for us to learn in public relations and even library marketing overall, is we have so many programs and so many events and we want eyes on them, and the media is not going to cover everything. And they're especially not if it's not truly a newsworthy story for them and their audience. So the more we have a relationship with people, we can figure out, so what will they cover? What are they going to do? Or what's the angle to get them to talk about winter reading or summer reading? Is it because you now have a larger goal than you've ever had before? Is it the first time? Is it the 10th time that you've done winter reading? What's new and newsworthy? And that's the part where I'm saying, remember to tell a story. And we're going to jump ahead because I want to do Q&A. A pop-up, and this is where I tell people that programming in itself isn't the story. But if you've got a pop-up session with a local fabric artist, highlighting the local fabric artist is the story. How a therapy dog helped a child overcome stuttering is the story. If you've got, something like Tumble Books, and you can talk about the story of how a grandmother now has great content that she feels confident when she is watching and babysitting her grandchildren because she has access to Tumble Books. That's a story. That if you have welcome kits and books in native languages that you can use with partnering with community partnerships to welcome refugees, that's a story. Certain aspects of our programming, maybe isn't. Think about what the powerful stories are and what your local media may not be aware of, and to think about what's in it. What's the hook? Why do your patrons love you? Why do they come? All those comments you put in at the beginning of this, beautiful question, from Jamie, to have you all thinking about it. Asking your community, what do they tell their friends about what's going on in the library? What makes you, newsworthy? The other tip is to know that what is a hook and what catches the attention for someone who is in the print media is different from somebody who is potentially in TV or even online. And that could mean the difference between what is going to be graphically, visually compelling for somebody who's on TV versus, ooh, that was an interesting question, or it's a statistic, or a did you know, that somebody could use potentially in radio or even print media. So let me, when I talked about quotes, pull questions, those hook people. They hook the reader in for the media, and they are more likely to hook in your media contacts into your story. They're powerful, they're emotional without falling into clickbaity or, sensationalist territory. So for example, library example, you could think about if you have a library service that helps improve a career switcher or a job hunter's life because they got a job because they used an online resume building service, at the library. If you've got all of these wonderful seasonal library programs that you're doing, what's the twist? What's different? Who's dyeing their hair green? Somebody was doing that. There's a twist that's more likely to get that picked up, and then answer the what's in it, for me question. So real quickly, I want to end on this one. I want to give you, this is the anatomy of a press release. There's that headline. It's going to be, this is the hook for a particular story. Short, concise, specific, factual, 24 rules to follow when creating a successful website. Improving ambulance response time by 67%. The headline is usually not winter reading program starts on Monday. That, dateline, meaning is this for immediate release versus is it embargoed? When is this happening? Your opening paragraph needs to succinctly summarize in 1 to 2 sentences what's important. Write the press release, come back and write your opening so that it's really good and hooks them into reading the body copy. The body copy is anywhere going to be from 3 to 6 paragraphs where you give them the facts they need, where you could include a key message, a good story. This is where you have one of those pull quotes, which means it's easy for a producer or an editor to pull that quote out and whoop, drop it in that story, or to use it online or on screen during media. Everybody loves, all the media loves a good pull quote. Have them for us. The about us is that thumbnail sketch about your organization that gives them a little bit of background, like you serve how many patrons, how many branches do you have, you've been around for how many years, although generally the how many years part, media doesn't care, but they do know, oh, you have that many patrons, oh, you have that many branches, okay. And then the content information of who to follow up with. When you get the slides, there's going to be a bunch of resources that are going to point you to do look at the examples of the John Cotton Dana Award winners, the PR Exchange winners, just with the note that a lot of those are marketing campaigns and not purely public relations. But take a look at them. Take a look at what they've done. Take a look at any of the examples. And there's going to be a bunch of examples in the resources section for how they've developed their materials, how they've developed their press releases. I also gave a handout that's got a worksheet to sort of work through some of these key questions as you're building your media kit. But I definitely want to, let's take some time for any questions that have come up as we were running pretty top. I've been unfortunately known for fire hosing. So much information to share and never enough time to do it in.
Totally understandable. It's a lot of cool stuff to talk about. And I think people were in intake mode, so we don't have a lot of questions. And you answered a lot along the way. So we don't have any stacked up, which is just fine. I thought of one, there are a lot of very small towns in our state that don't have and they don't have a local news. They don't have a local news outlet. And I know you talked about other, just developing those other relationships, but do you have any other thoughts about that?
Yeah, question, so social media, who's running the local social media groups? So many of the communities, even I'm in the Philadelphia suburbs, but I'm not in Philadelphia, and sometimes the news media comes out here. But guarantee you there's local Facebook pages, there's local Facebook groups, Patch, there are online community journalist sorts of things. Don't skip those as potential partnership sources for sharing news and information, or cultivating 1 or 2 folks within those groups who are champions for you, who can help share your message. Because no, you're not going to have a TV station. So you've got, Meredith says she's got a tiny weekly newspaper and the closest TV stations are 40 miles away. Meredith, I'm in a suburb of Philadelphia. I'm a good 45 miles outside of the city, but they'll come and they'll send trucks And I'll tell you this, I happen to note there are some of the reporters who live not far from us. So we get stories sometimes that wouldn't get otherwise because the reporter's already here. The truck's literally in the driveway, a few miles away. So don't assume that just because they're far away from you that they might not care or have somebody who's willing to come out here.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Thank you just in general, Jennifer, for an excellent presentation. And thanks everyone for joining us today. Our next session our next session is our closing session at 2:30 today with Dan Gingiss. And we hope that you can join us. And if not, have a great rest of your day anyway. And these slides and things will be on the website. Take care, everyone. Thank you again.
Thank you all. Thank you for having me. Stay well, stay warm, and